Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Lake County. I am Jane Thanks, your worship leader for today. We are a diverse and welcoming congregation. We foster liberal religious living through worship, study, service, and fellowship. Membership in this community is open to all who choose to walk with us in the spirit of love and in the search for truth. Today, we will hold our annual flower communion ritual, after which our consulting minister, Reverend Millie Phillips, will deliver a reflection entitled A Flowering of Courage. Until we can meet in person again, we will continue to hold services here on Zoom. Next Sunday, we will join the San Mateo UU community at 10 o'clock on their Zoom site. All the rest of the Sundays through July, we will be holding our own services here at 11 at our UU CLC Zoom site. Please join us after the service for our coffee hour and discussion, followed today by our annual congregational meeting. We warmly welcome those of you who may be new among us. And UUA slide. Whoop. There it is. The UUA General Assembly will be held online this year on June 24th through 28th. So you don't have to travel back east. You can join from the comfort of your own home. The cost has been reduced to $150 and registration is still open. Visit the website listed on your screen. Okay. Is Tom here?
I do not see Tom.
Okay. He was going to make an announcement, but we'll see when he shows up.
And so we'll move on to the opening hymn.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead and, oh, we have it there.
It's okay. Okay, so now for our opening hymn, I invite you all to sing along with me with your microphones muted. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
Today's opening words are from a meditation written by Reverend Norbert Chapek, the founder of Flower Communion, while imprisoned by the Nazis. In the depths of my soul, there lies the source of strength, where the divine and the human meet. There, quiet your mind, quiet, quiet. Outside, let lightning rain. Horrible darkness frighten the world. But from the depths of your own soul, from that silence will rise again God's flower.
Please join me in reading the chalice lighting on your screen. Come into the circle of love and justice. Come into the community of mercy, holiness, and health. Come and you shall know peace and joy. Just a minute. Okay. I want to thank the Change the World kids, Meg Miller and Phyllis Arata Mayers, for information and permission to tell their story. Phoebe and Nika were two girls, both 8 years old. Sometimes they heard about bad things going on around them in the world, things like terrible wars where people would die, or earthquakes that would shake the ground and destroy people's homes. They wanted to help, but they weren't sure what kids could do. They decided to talk to the kids in their congregation, the North Universalist Chapel Society in Woodstock, Vermont. This was the beginning of the Change the World Kids, a group of children who worked together to protect many different parts of the interconnected web of all life. When they learn about problems in the world, the Change the World kids think of ways they can act to make a difference. They learned there is plenty kids can do to help. The Change the World kids are an action club, and their motto is, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. Nika, Phoebe, and all the other Change the World kids learned about the ripple effect. They learned when one person takes action, even one small way, that action can send ripples into the world around us, just as water ripples in a lake. In Vermont, where the Change the World kids live, many had bird feeders in their backyards. The bird feeders attracted beautiful songbirds. When Vermont got very cold, the birds migrated south to warmer places for the winter. One springtime, a couple of Change the World kids noticed fewer birds came back to their bird feeders after the winter. They wanted to know what happened to these birds. The scientist told the Change the World kids about endangered species, animals that might become extinct if nobody helped save the natural woods, forests, and oceans the animals needed to live. The children learned that the birds they saw in Vermont in the spring and summer were losing their winter homes in Costa Rica because people were cutting down the trees. People in Costa Rica wanted the wood to build new homes, or sometimes they wanted to cut the forests to make more pasture land for beef cattle or to grow crops. But the trees were already being used as homes by the birds. The children learned that tropical birds, like the three-wattled bellbird, will not even fly over land that has no trees. And when northern birds migrate for food in the winter and find none, they will die. What could the kids do? The problem was happening thousands of miles away in Costa Rica. How could the kids help? Vermont was so far away, and the kids were just kids. The Change the World kids remembered the ripple effect. Maybe they couldn't do everything to save the birds, but they could do something. They raised money to help start a tree nursery, Bosque para Siempre, that means forest forever in Spanish. They used some of the money that they raised to buy land for the migratory birds. Some of the kids took trips to Costa Rica to plant trees. They have replenished the forest with more than 40,000 trees that provide fruit and shade for many species of birds. One time in Costa Rica, the Change the World kids help put tags on birds. Tags help scientists keep track of the birds and learn more about them. The Change the World kids got to hold a red-breasted grosbeak and a wood thrush, both birds that spend part of the year in Vermont. In time, as the effects of their actions in Costa Rica are felt all around the world, like the ripple effect, the Change the World kids know they will begin to hear and see more birds in Vermont. Nika and Phoebe grew older. New children joined the Change the World kids. Now the Action Club has teenagers and middle schoolers from many different religions. And they know that every action, no matter how small, can have ripples that spread around them. To help protect the earth, the Change the World kids designed and sold reusable shopping bags. They made clotheslines so people could use the power of the sun instead of electricity to dry their clothes. The Change the World kids do projects as simple as shoveling snow or chopping firewood for an older person in their community, and as complicated as raising money for children's schools and healthcare in Rwanda, where communities have suffered from war. With every action, big or small, the Change the World kids prove what Phoebe and Nikki learned. Nobody can do everything, but each person can do something to protect the earth and all life on it. Each action makes a ripple, and the ripples change the world. So did we come back to no more pictures, right? No more photos?
Let us now join in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, may we develop the wisdom to guide us through great transitions, the courage to do what is necessary, and the humility to be compassionate, knowing that we too often fail to be our best selves. May we not burden those who request our solidarity. May we speak truth to power. May we have the integrity to become the persons we have always wanted to believe we are. In the words of Norbert Chapek, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts, take our breath, and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands, and let us work to shape our art. Amen. May we now observe a few moments of silent meditation. I will signal when that is over, and we can join in singing Spirit of Life after that moment of silence. Please join me. Thank you. Just join in singing, Carol.
I will now sing Spirit of Life, and I invite you to sing along with the Clovis Lewis Many of One Orchestra, who will be performing Spirit of Life today. It starts with a short introduction, and then there is no no human accompaniment with this, since you all know the words and the tune.
Thank you. We will now begin our flower communion ceremony with an introduction. As is true today in so many bigger ways, in this service we are called upon to try something new, a virtual flower communion. The Unitarian Universalist Flower Communion service was originated in 1923 by Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek, founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia, with the goal of giving a joyful expression to the humanity-affirming principles of our faith. When the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Reverend Čapek's gospel of the inherent worth and beauty of every human person to be, as Nazi court records show, quote, too dangerous to the Reich to allow him to live, unquote. He was sent to Dachau, where he was killed in a gas chamber in 1942. UUs honor his memory and his message of human hope and decency by continuing to celebrate his beloved flower communion. When this ritual is performed in person, we exchange the flowers, recognizing that our community is a bouquet of many flowers, and giving and receiving the beauty of each other's contributions. Often we choose our flower to honor or remember someone who inspires us. We have adapted this ritual to match the necessities of our time. As we begin, please raise your flower and meditate on the name of one person, one precious flower who has been lost to police brutality or to other acts of racist violence. We will now begin with a poem, For Flowers Have the Gift of Language, by retired UU minister, Reverend Richard S. Gilbert. Jane will lead us in that poem.
Speak, flowers, speak. Why do you say nothing? The flowers have the gift of language. In the meadow, they speak of freedom, creating patterns, wild and free, as no gardener could match. In the forest, they nestle, snug carpets under the roof of leaf and branch, making a rug of such softness. At end tip of branches, they cling briefly before bursting into sweet fruit. Flowers Can you not speak joy to our sadness and hope to our fear? Can you not say how it is with you? That your color, you darkest, that you color the darkest corner? The flowers have the gift of language. At the occasion of birth, they are buds before bursting. At the ceremony of love, they unite two lovers in beauty. At the occasion of death, they remind us how lovely life is. Oh, would that you had voice, silent messengers of hope. Would that you could tell us how you feel, arrayed in such beauty. The flowers have the gift of language. In the dark depths of the death camp, they speak the light of life. In the face of cruelty, they speak of courage. In the experience of ugliness, they bespeak the persistence of beauty. Speak, messengers, speak. For we would hear your message. Speak, messengers, speak. For we need to hear what you would say. For the flowers have the gift of language. They transport the human voice on winds of beauty. They lift the melody of song to our ears. They paint through the eye and hand of the artist. Their fragrance binds us to sweet-smelling earth. May the blessing of flowers be upon you. May their beauty beckon you each morning, and their loveliness lure you each day, and their tenderness caress you each night. May their delicate petals make you gentle, and their eyes make you aware. May their stems make you sturdy, and their reaching make you care.
And now comes a time in our flower communion where if we were together, we would be coming forward one at a time to put our flowers or to take our flowers from a collective vase and to speak a words of remembrance. So moving forward in this virtual setting, what I will do is I will ask each of you to say their name. And the way we'll do this is I'd like for you to recall a name of a person who has been lost to police brutality or other acts of racial violence. If you can't think of a particular name, there's so many of them, I can't remember all the names. Just think of the instance and the person, remember them in your heart as you open your microphone and speak the name. I will invite each of you to open and close your own microphone in turn as you feel led. I will start, and if for some reason you can't get your microphone unmuted, just raise your hand so I can see you and I will unmute your microphone. People who I don't have video on, if you will write in the chat that you would like to speak, I will then recognize you. I will start. This flower is in remembrance of the young man in Georgia last night who was shot dead by police for sleeping in his car at a Wendy's and then for running away with a taser in his hand.
Trayvon Martin.
Anna, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The person I'm naming is Breonna Taylor. She's a single Black woman who was killed in her own home based on a no-knock warrant. The police were looking for drugs and there were no drugs. Thank you.
Clovis.
I am thinking of Sandra Blaine and how her life ended with a stupid police stop. Started, the beginning of the end for her was that, and then she was killed somehow in a police cell the night after. So, thinking of her.
Gigi? If you can unmute yourself, yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking of Eric Gardner saying, "I can't breathe." This is for him.
Annette?
The name I'm saying is Sean Monterosa, a 22-year-old San Franciscan who was shot and killed by a Vallejo police officer. They thought he had a gun, but he had a hammer and was killed.
I'm going to offer one from Canada. This happens in Canada as well. A young woman named Chantel Moore, who was killed by the RCMP during a health check.
Millie? Then Stephen.
I raise this flower in remembrance of Nia Wilson, an 18-year-old Black woman who was stabbed to death in a BART station by a racist individual.
Stephen? You can unmute yourself.
I raised this, I had it in my hand, to Harvey Milk, murdered along with the mayor and so on in San Francisco many years ago by a former policeman and council member.
Unmute yourself, Jane.
I want us to remember Philando Castile, who was a Minnesota man stopped for a broken taillight and was shot 7 times by a police officer.
Are there any further voices that would like to share at this time?
I've unmuted myself. My flower is in remembrance of Trayvon Martin.
Got it.
I raise these flowers in honor of Sterling Higgins.
And Medgar Evers.
I dedicate these flowers to the memory of Emmett Tills.
And I see in the chat that Bruce also echoes your sentiment, Pamela. He says, I'd like to remember Emmett Till. 65 years ago, he was laid in an open casket to see the evils of racism. And it appears we have no other people. We are finished with our sharing. So I will now consecrate the flowers that you have all brought together today and the names that have been read. May we continue to say their names. In their memory, let us consecrate these flowers using the words of the Reverend Norbert Chapek. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendships as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world.
Flower communion is not meant to be solemn and dreary. It is a celebration of life. In sight and often in scent, flowers are proof that beauty exists as an innate part of creation. And to be moved by their fleeting beauty is proof that joy can exist too. Let us not be daunted by hard times and difficult transitions. Rather, let us be flowers, blooming each in our own time and place, each different from one another, yet alike in our common purpose to ensure that life continues, to bring solace, hope, and joy on the journey to justice. Let us end this ritual with Reverend Chapek's traditional flower communion prayer, the words of which will be shared on your screen. Though you are muted, let us say them together. In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the tree, and in the hearts of people the longing for living in human love, in the name of the highest, in whom we move, and who makes the mother, the father, the brother, and the sister what they are, in the name of sages and great religious leaders who have sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of peace and justice, let us renew our resolution, sincerely to be real siblings, regardless of any bar which estranges one from another. In this holy resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are God's family, that one spirit, the spirit of love, unites us, and may we endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen.
And now we move to our offertory, and I will let now Jane introduce that. You're still muted, Jane.
During the offertory, we will listen to Wild Mountain Time, performed by Michael Richardson.
Oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the purple heather, will you grow? Lassie, will you go? And we'll all go together to pick wild mountain thyme all around the purple heather. Will you go? Lassie, will you go? I will build my love a tower by yon pure and crystal fountain, and yes, and on it I will lay all the flowers of the mountain. Will you go? Lassie, will you go? Pick wild rose, and we'll go together to pick wild mountain thyme all around the purple heather. Will you go? Lassie, will you go? If my true love won't come with me, then I will surely find another to pick wild mountain thyme all around the purple heather. Will you go? Lassie, will you go? And we will all go together to pick wild mountain thyme all around the purple heather. Will you go? Oh, will you go? Lassie, will you go?
So I can make this special announcement after the offering commitment. Please join me in the commitment to receiving the offering written on your screen. For the gifts which we have received and the gifts which we ourselves are, may we be truly grateful. May we be committed to using these gifts to make a difference in the world, to increase love and justice, to decrease hatred and oppression, to expand beloved community, to share and keep sharing as long as ever we can. And now we have a special announcement from Reverend Tom McCannley of the Berkeley UU Fellowship, who will tell us about the important work of the Poor People's Campaign.
At least he was here.
Uh-oh.
He has a message on chat that said he couldn't get in, I thought.
Oh, well, I will read what he has here. He's having problems with his audio. And it says here, thanks for inviting me. I was to speak on the Poor People's Campaign. We have a virtual mass assembly and march on Washington on June 20th. Go to poorpeoplescampaign.org to register. Thanks and blessings.
And may I add that Reverend Tom McCannley is on the steering committee of the Bay Area Poor People's Campaign, which I am also. Move into the reflection. Norbert Chapek was a victim of police brutality and mass incarceration. He wasn't persecuted because of the color of his skin, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, party affiliations, or physical and mental abilities, or his grounding in Christianity. Rather, he was killed solely because he organized others to see the innate worth and dignity of human beings. The Nazis were honest about this in their records. Unlike most victims of police brutality and mass incarceration in our country, Čapek could easily have avoided his fate. He had been living in the US for a while. His wife and children were here. He did not have to go back to Czechoslovakia. He did not have to preach ideas that challenged racism and fascism. He could have stayed quiet or expressed his ideas only in places of relative safety, like the Unitarian congregation he had once joined, attending at first because his children liked the Sunday school. The purpose of these comments is not to advocate martyrdom. Rather, it is to point out that living our beliefs can be risky. It does take courage. If we belong to sectors that could hide out without persecution, a category that applies to most white people in the US, at least for now, courage may seem unnecessary. However, if more had followed Čapek's lead, he and millions more might not have been martyred. With hindsight, there were opportunities for resistance before fascism had a stranglehold on Germany and Italy, and then much of Europe. What if the communists and socialists had united to defeat Hitler? If the Catholics and Protestants alike had spoken out in defense of Jews at the first signs of an uptick in anti-Semitism? If scientists and social workers had challenged eugenics? If Europeans had overcome their racism against the Roma? Our country was founded on the genocide of indigenous people and the slavery of Africans. The Nazis used our eugenic theories to justify murdering millions of Jews, Roma, homosexuals, and people with disabilities. So it should be no surprise whatsoever that such brutality continues in the US. Where do we draw the line between concentration camps and the mass incarceration of Black people and the detention of immigrants? Is it only that the latter haven't yet imposed the absolute final solution of the Nazis? Even the Nazis took a few years to go that far. With the COVID-19 pandemic leading to a deep economic depression and the open encouragement of racism and authoritarianism on the rise, here and throughout much of the world, we have choices to make. Unitarian Universalists must not be good Germans. We must find the courage to act. Ignorance, cowardice, and defending privilege have prevented many from making the best choices. In addition, though, I think there is another reason why so many have looked away. Flowers flourish in fertile ground, and they need pollination, water, sunlight, and shade. Without these, plants shrivel and die. What if a flourishing flower could be a metaphor for courage and a shriveled, dying plant, a metaphor for resignation. The last few weeks have given us an opening like never before. This huge uprising for Black Lives Matter and more is not only changing consciousness about what is wrong in this country, it is mobilizing millions at significant personal risk to demand policy changes, such as defunding police, that might have seemed utopian a few weeks ago. It has us talking, some for the first time, not about what kind of society we are compelled to tolerate, but what kind of society we truly want. It takes courage to challenge ours and others' beliefs, to risk disease or violence to protest, or to open ourselves to new possibilities. In the past, even if aware of the problems, we had no real solutions because we could not think outside the prison of a system grounded in genocide and slavery. It seemed permanent and all-encompassing, even for those who already hated it. In a word, we were resigned. Spiritually, if not literally, shriveling and dying. Now, we have a mass movement that is fertilizing, pollinating, watering, even pruning us a bit. And perhaps just in time, it is sprouting a flowering of courage. And may it continue to do so. Thank you.
Please join me in reading the chalice extinguishing words on your screen. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.
Just have some closing words. Just before he was put to death, Reverend Chapek wrote these words, reflecting on his own life and the state of his spirit. It is worthwhile to live courageously, to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. Oh, blow ye evil winds into my body's fire, my soul you'll never unravel. Even though disappointed 1,000 times, or fallen in the fight, and everything would worthless seem, I have lived amidst eternity. Be grateful, my soul. My life was worth living. And please stay online for our conversation in our annual congregational meeting at 12:30.
Now's the time you can all grab a quick cup of coffee and get your lunch, sandwich, and we can have a virtual potluck together. as we carry on our conversation in about 5 minutes from last week and today, before we have our annual general meeting at 12:30. So I'll see you all soon.
I will move to my kitchen, a little less formal setting. Thank you.